Glasshouses are a magical addition to any garden, and today we visit one of the most impressive conservatories in North America. You won't want to miss it, so stay tuned as we garden smart.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs. Our goal is to leave you free to just enjoy your garden. Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs can be found at local garden centers across the country.
Power Planter's garden drill augers are designed to help you tackle the digging jobs in your garden or yard. Dig through hard soil to assist in planting trees, shrubs, and annuals. Power Planter's heavy-duty augers, made for professional landscapers and home gardeners alike.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 80 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
Today we're making another trip to the magnificent Biltmore Estates to tour their stately conservatory. We arrive at a particularly special time of the year as it happens to be decorated for the holiday season. Each year the designers and horticulturists pour their heart and passion into creating displays that warm the heart and excite the senses. We're joined today by Todd Roy, who's a brilliant designer and a talented plantsman. Todd, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for coming. We're happy to have you here.
Yeah, this is such a beautiful conservatory, and I think it really underscores the importance of the gardens to Biltmore, because it's Biltmore Estate and Gardens. And structurally, it's also just such a beautiful feature. I want you to kind of walk us through the way that the conservatory is laid out.
So what you're going to see here, you're standing in the main room. This is the palm room. So we have 8 rooms, but this is the largest room, around 40 foot tall. So we can feature some of our bigger specimens, palms, that sort of thing, some of our trees. We have 8 total rooms. Again, there's one over here on our other side that's called the orchid room. Obviously, just to feature our orchid collection, we have a pretty large orchid collection, well over 1,000. And so that room we use to feature those. We have an exhibit room, which we just rotate to feature the various seasons. Then we have 3 wings. We have a sitting room, which is just that, has furniture, looks like a traditional Victorian sitting room. Then we have the hot room and the cool room, which traditionally were more propagational back then. That's the name, cool or hot, to propagate certain kinds of plants for the estate. Now it's just used just for display nowadays. And then we have a cactus and succulent room, as well as a potting room.
Wonderful. So how old is the structure? It's been here since the estate was built, right?
It's definitely one of the older ones around.
It's an amazing shape. I'm sure that there's quite a bit of effort that goes into keeping it as beautiful as it is.
Sure. I mean, what you're seeing here is built way back then, so it is us trying to make do with something that maybe doesn't work like a modern greenhouse does, but we have a computer system that controls the heat and humidity and all that stuff, so we do make do. It is modernized. It's been, glass has been changed through the years, but it is still largely the original structure.
Wow, well, it feels great here and the plants look super happy.
It's very humid and hot in here, and that's what the plants enjoy and our guests enjoy. As you see, it's cold outside, so it's a nice way for them to come in, get out of the cold, and enjoy the plants inside.
Todd, there are a few plants that say holiday cheer the way that poinsettias do, and you've got some really interesting ones. It's a great collection. One thing I love about what you've done here is you give people the opportunity to see all the different variations that could occur. You know, the common poinsettia that we all know and love is just a basic red, and there's so many more that are out there. And so I love the fact that folks can come to the conservatory and really get a sense of the breadth of any category of plants. So I love that. Let's talk about poinsettias. What is the plant? What do we need to know about it?
So it actually comes from western Mexico. So it actually doesn't like it in here. We're very humid, and it actually comes from a dry region. So it's a great plant actually for the home because it likes it dry, doesn't need a lot of water, does need some bright light, but other than that, it could be very successful in the average home.
Yeah, so we typically interact with it in the context of a potted plant that, you know, gets about maybe 2 feet tall. In its native habitat, they can get quite large, right?
Sure. It's actually a very large bush. They're kind of a little bit airy in their growth habit, but they're going to get anywhere from 6, 8 to 10 feet.
In order to get the color change on a poinsettia, that's a light-dependent process, right?
You could cause the color change by just putting it in a closet for about 12 hours a day.
Right.
And then once that color change starts to happen, then you can just leave it out. But you could simulate those growing environments.
Excellent. So it's a euphorbia, right? We know many other garden euphorbias, and that's the genus of this plant.
Sure, Euphorbia pulcherrima, but the euphorbia species are known for having the white sap,
right,
and very dry conditions. A lot of euphorbias are cactus and succulent, very big family, but a family that I can see as being a good one for a house plant because of its liking it dry and those kind of conditions.
Yeah, so we can't overwater it, right?
Definitely not. They do like it dry, and your watering or overwatering can lead to their demise.
Let's talk about this beautiful poinsettia tree, and I love the selection here with these like gold speckled bracts. First, tell me how you built the poinsettia tree, and then let's talk about this cultivar.
Sure, so what you see here is a total of about 50 individual poinsettias arranged on basically a cone tree form. So if you could see underneath it, it is a metal substructure that we attach the individual poinsettias to. So this variety is called glitter. So a nice way to showcase the poinsettia as well as really say, this is Christmas.
Let's talk about some other fun varieties that you've been working with.
Sure, so when you come in, you're going to see some different varieties. Most people think of red. We have some non-traditional varieties, one called Golden Glow that's yellow. We have Orange Glow, where there's a very bright fluorescent orange. We have Mouse Ears, which is this one behind us, that has a round leaf. Most traditional poinsettias have a holly leaf, so this one's round. We have a rose form, which actually is contorted, almost looks like carnation or rose-shaped flowers. We have a variegated one called Tapestry, so
wow,
the foliage is variegated.
It's so cool to be able to see this incredible spectrum and start thinking about poinsettia in a different way. They're great plants. Todd, there's so much diversity in the world of bromeliads and tillandsias, and I don't think any conservatory would be complete without a collection. You've got a wonderful collection here, and I want you to talk us through some of your favorites.
I think bromeliads are a really great plant. It can be used as a house plant, but they do come from the jungles of Central and South America, so they do like humidity and dampness, but it is a great one. I don't know of any other plant that you can use to get that impact of color. So what you're seeing behind us it's just an example of some of the different varieties. Probably my most asked about is Echmea Blue Tango and Echmea Del Mar, just because they have that brilliant blue and pink. Some of the other Echmeas, which are the favorite because Echmeas have a tall flower stalk. The other varieties like Neoregelia are really popular for foliage because they're just grown for that, the bright color. Like the variety behind us is called Casablanca. Our Christmas tree in there, we have a tree made out of individual bromeliads. That variety is called Margaret. Down here we have Echmea Harvey's Pride. Over here behind you, shows the scale of how big they can get. That's Ecmia Big Ben, 3 to 4 foot tall one. A whole different variety of plants.
Well, one bromeliad that we all know can be found in the grocery store, and that's a pineapple, right?
Sure. I think that's the common misconception is people see things in the store, but they have no idea where it comes from. And that is a bromeliad. It's called an anonis. Interesting thing about bromeliads is when they fruit or they flower, they are done. So you'll have to cut away that mother plant, but they do basically kick off what we call pups, young plants, to basically continue on the cycle.
So let's talk about growing and caring for bromeliads and tillandsias. They can be a really, really practical and easy plant to have in the home.
Sure, again, high humidity from Central and South America. They are mostly epiphytic, so they're going to be growing on trees, that sort of thing, up in the canopy and tree crotches, on branches. That would be the problem with most people in their home. They're going to overwater them. They have to be careful not to overwater, and then it's also important to have a really good draining soil, almost a cactus succulent mix, something that's going to drain really well.
So let's talk about Spanish moss, not a moss, right?
No, I think that is where those common names sometimes mislead people. So Spanish moss, as you can see here growing on the tree, is actually a Tillandsia yasnoides, and that one is related to all these bromeliads that you see. It's an air plant.
So I love keeping these in the home and of course in bloom. Fantastic. And I think it's just a great plant for homeowners to consider. One of the many reasons that I love visiting private and public gardens is to see these plants that just make you say, wow. And you've got a lot of great examples of those. Talk to us about some of your favorites, Todd.
Sure, so this is probably one of my most asked for, just because when, especially children, they see this, they kind of think of a caterpillar. But this variety here is, the common name is chenille plant, but is Acalypha hispida. It comes from New Guinea, Malaysia, those tropical Asian areas. This variety has been trained a little bit, so you see it looks like a tree. It's been trained to be a standard form, but it is actually in the wild a bush. You know, going to be a pretty large bush in that 8 to 10 foot range. But if you live in the southern regions of the United States, like Florida, like zone 10, maybe 9B, you'll be able to grow this in your yard.
And how does it do as a houseplant?
This one's going to be a little tough to grow just because of the size. And also when you get into a home, because of the lack of humidity, this is going to be one that comes from a more humid and tropical environment. So it's going to be not the best choice as a houseplant.
Todd, over the years, we've filmed many community gardens and many public gardens that do a great job of demonstrating where the things that we eat or find in the grocery store come from. And I find it fascinating to see someone, and oftentimes it's with children, where they discover a tomato on a bush, and just that sense of wonderment of like, oh wow, that's where that comes from. And you've got a great example here of a banana, which we don't oftentimes see these in full fruit, and it really is, it's fascinating. You never get tired of seeing that.
The variety you see here is dwarf Cavendish. It is the variety that you would see in the grocery store. Dwarf not meaning in the fruit, but it's dwarf because it was created to be a shorter variety of banana. Bananas typically are tall and they tend to want to blow over in the wind. So this variety has been bred to be shorter and squattier, so that way they don't tip over so easy.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the history of bananas. Dwarf Cavendish is a bit newer to the pantheon of cultivars that we see in the grocery store. It's only been around since, what, the 50s or 60s or so?
Yeah, so in the 1950s, there was a problem in the industry. The early banana, the only banana that was ever known really to the general public, was called Gros Michel or Big Mike. Panama disease is a type of fusarium that was starting to attack the plantations and killing off the bananas. So they were trying to find a variety that they could replace it with, and they found this dwarf Cavendish was resistant to it.
Yeah, it underscores the importance of diversity. A lot of the problems that we don't oftentimes see, because it happens behind the scenes in commercial agriculture, a lot of times, oftentimes those problems, they creep in because we're only growing one kind of banana or one kind of, name any fruit. And then that's where you can end up with the kind of crisis that we had in the 50s. Let's talk about bananas for the home gardener. I love dwarf Cavendish in containers, and actually I've also found them to be quite a bit more cold hardy than I would have expected.
Sure, I mean, they are definitely tropical. Look at the leaf, it's an indication. Anything with a big leaf like that, it's gonna like a lot of solarization. They want that heat, that humidity. They are very heavy drinkers and heavy feeders. You're gonna have to really fertilize them, really water them. But if you do take them out, you're gonna get, a good reward out of the fruit.
Yeah, so do they fruit reliably for most folks indoors?
Indoors, it's going to be tricky just because of the sheer size of it.
Right.
But there are some varieties, if you can do your research and find some of the dwarf varieties that don't get quite as big as this. The big thing is going to be the humidity, just trying to get that water and the humidity to them.
Right, absolutely. Well, and I think the reward is well worth it. The child in me never gets tired of seeing a giant cluster of bananas. One of my favorite of all tropical plants is the orchid. I think also in many conservatories, especially when they're all in bloom, it's one of the stars of the show. So many amazing colors, almost any color you can imagine, all kinds of crazy combinations of colors too. And I think that, even in the home, it's one of those plants that every garden enthusiast should have.
It's a big, big plant family and hard to really grasp. It's one of the largest plant families in the world. You're looking like 25,000 individual species. But just to get a grasp on that, they're in every continent in the world other than Antarctica, dispersed all over the world. This variety happens to be what we refer to as the slipper orchid. Most orchids are epiphytic, growing up in trees, but this just happens to be one of them that does grow in the ground terrestrially.
I want you to talk about this container assembly here. It's really, really interesting, and I think it underscores a lot of the creativity that goes into the work that you do.
Sure, I mean, this is a good idea for a homeowner maybe has something left over or laying around. This is actually basically a leftover bird bath that we've created a diorama and a display out of, just using a soil bag in there and able to cut in the different orchids and create a whole display that looks very much natural, like you would see it in the wild. So this is kind of like how you would see it.
Yeah, I love the way that you've got it nicely mounted, so you have this really nice gradient.
So this all was done basically a large concrete fountain bowl, and then we just put a large bag of soil in there and an upside down pot to create your whole dome effect, and then we're able to cut in holes into the bag the size of the pot, and it allows us to switch in and out. As the plants are done blooming, we can switch quickly a new blooming plant and always keep it very showy for our guests.
Going back to orchids, are there any tips for having success with them? I know that one of the challenges I have from time to time is getting them to bloom for me reliably. What should I be doing?
Sure, I think that's the biggest challenge is all these houseplants that we have, they're not houseplants, they came from the tropics or subtropics. So now you put them in a home and now they're not getting what they need. And one of those big things is fertilizer. A good 20-20-20 balanced fertilizer each time you're watering. You can cut back in the wintertime when they're not growing so much, but when they're growing, you're gonna have to give them good fertilizer. They really like humidity, 60% humidity or higher, so you might consider a humidity tray, something to get those humidity levels up.
Yeah, absolutely. So understanding, what does this plant need? What requirements does it have to produce blooms, and kind of get into the mind of the plant is important to understanding it and also getting the best results. Todd, well, many people probably think of your job as mostly horticultural. In the context of what you do every day, there is this floral design aspect that's so important to the visitor's experience. And you've got some wonderful examples of some of your work. I love the creativity, and I love coming to places like Biltmore to get ideas. It's why I spend as much time looking at container compositions and things like these amazing little Christmas trees that you've built. Talk to me about this composition here. It's really fascinating.
A lot of what we do, you see, is horticulture. You see the plants around it, the foundation. But then there's that element of floral and design and creativity that we do, and that is what you see here. A Christmas tree made out of anthuriums. Anthuriums are a really popular plant, both for the home, but as used in tropical gardens. This is an aroid that comes from South America, like Ecuador, that area. So an aroid, it's gonna like it a little drier. It has some air roots, really thrives in the home with misting, regular misting to keep the humidity up, and it's because of those air roots. Also the importance of a good soil mix. When you get that plant home, don't just put it in any old soil. Right. You want a good draining soil mix, and that might even go as far as to amending your soil, buying some perlite and further amending that soil. That way that plant really has what it needs to be successful in your home.
I love the color. This is like a glossy fire engine red that it almost looks like you've clear coated it. Really, really fantastic. Outside of red, there are many, many other colors that we can get anthurium in, right?
Sure. They often call this the wax flower or the flamingo flower, and most commonly red, but there's pink, there's purple, there's white, there's some really dark purples, almost blacks now, but very much known for that waxy flower and very popular amongst home enthusiasts.
You've got quite a background in container design. A lot of the way that you think about plants in the context of the garden is putting together these wonderful compositions, and I love that about the way that you approach horticulture. One exhibit that I want you to point out to us is this amazing chandelier.
Sure, we had been thinking about something like this for a while. It's actually really an upside down tree, but it's created using bromeliads to kind of give it that chandelier effect. So they're the Neo-Regelia bromeliads with that bright colored foliage, as well as the Guzmanias, which is a very popular home Guzmania bromeliad. So this variety here gives it that bright, showy display that we were looking for.
Yeah, it really, really packs a punch. It's fantastic. Well, Todd, I want to encourage everyone out there to come visit Biltmore, and you have to come multiple times throughout the year to come visit you because these exhibits are changing all the time, and there's always something exciting to see here, and we've learned so much from you. Thank you so much, Todd.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Each week we travel the country north to south, east to west, visiting some of the most exciting gardens, as well as talking to industry horticulturalists about design principles, new plants, and also how you can be most successful with your home gardens. We also love answering your gardening questions, so visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com.
These moments of beauty and relaxation are brought to you by Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs. Our goal is to leave you free to just enjoy your garden. Proven Winners Flowering Shrubs can be found at local garden centers across the country.
Power Planters garden drill augers are designed to help you tackle the digging jobs in your garden or yard. Dig through hard soil to assist in planting trees, shrubs, and annuals. Power Planters heavy-duty augers made for professional landscapers and home gardeners alike.
DRAM has been providing gardeners with professional equipment for over 80 years. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
The Jaguar F-Pace.
It's amazing to see the evolution of the plant collections at Biltmore and the incredible creativity that goes into making every visit special. If you have questions about anything you've seen today, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember, even if you're a master gardener, there's always more to learn. So join us next week for more great gardening tips and ideas as we garden smart.